Sorry. Yeah, sorry for that interruption. This meeting is being recorded. And yes, I welcome you to our talk on native plants for Yamuna habitats. So WICI, which is Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Delhi Sustainable Businesses Council, is the apex body for sustainable businesses for women in the state of Delhi. WICI DSBC envisions to bring about fundamental changes in government policies, laws, and incentives with a view to encourage and empower women in sustainable businesses, industry, and commerce across all sectors and fields. It aims to enable individuals, communities, and businesses to work together to create a vibrant, healthy, and sustainable Delhi. Wiki DSBC achieves its three-pronged mission to research, empower, advocate through a series of programs. And you'll keep seeing more of that as you stay connected with us. Just like the Native Plant Awareness Talks, part 4 of which is today, which is what you're all part of. Through awareness generation and support and on-ground implementation, we hope to improve the quality of air, land, and water of our city, and hope you all will be part of this effort. Do reach out to us, and Khushbu, who is the backbone of all of this, is going to be sharing all our details on the chat box, especially our LinkedIn details, our Facebook, Instagram pages, and our email. So do reach out to us if you want to be part of our initiatives. So moving on to today's talk and the host for our talk, an urban ecologist, gardener, and urban farmer. Valerie is currently pursuing her PhD in urban ecology from North Carolina State University, USA, studying the role of urban trees in Delhi from ecological and socio-cultural perspectives. She's fascinated by nature in the city and spends an inordinate amount of time with the birds, bees, butterflies, plants, and trees around us, observing and enjoying them. She has an annual pop up native plant nursery in her house where she grows native plants from seeds and distributes the saplings for plantation across the city. Please do reach out to her for this. This is something you don't want to miss. She has been engaging her neighborhood community, including school children, into doing tree census of the street trees of her colony and has logged over 5,000 trees in their database information that is crucial for the conservation of street trees. Over to Vallari Sheel, our hostess for the evening.
Thank you, Jayati, for that wonderful introduction. Um, and I'm very excited to have here with us today Bhuvan, because Bhuvan is an expert on wetland and water and riverine plants, and which are often ignored. Even I don't know much about it. And I met Bhuvan. I haven't met him very often, but I met him just a few months back at a gathering. And even then, after I was after him. I said, Bhuvan, I want to learn about the Yamuna plants. Will you take me for a walk? Where can we go? Where do we see it? What are the plants? I don't know anything about it. So I'm so glad he's joined us today. And Bhuvan has a master's degree in environmental studies from DU, where he is currently pursuing his PhD. He also teaches at DU, and he has enormous experience over the past 15 years for restoration of all types of habitats within Delhi NCR, especially the wetland and riverine habitats. He's been a nature educator. He's worked at the Yamuna Biodiversity Park, and he's also working as a consultant with the Noida Authority to rejuvenate certain wetlands over there. So Bhuvan, thank you so much for joining us today. I can't wait to learn about the Yamuna plants. But the first question that I always start with is, what are native plants and why should we be talking about them?
Good evening, one and all, and thank you, Valerie, for giving me the stage and giving me the opportunity to share my experience and knowledge to all the people which are present here. First of all, we all know that plants, they are very important part of the environment. Okay, and if we talk about the native plants, from the word native means which are present in that particular region. Okay, but exact definition of the native plants is those plants which are found in a particular region, which are well adapted to that particular region. But the most important thing is that they are evolved in that particular region. The evolution is the main criteria for selecting the native plants. Okay, we have so many plants which are adapted to the Delhi conditions. For example, we talk about the champa, which is growing very commonly, plumeria, the scientific name of, and it is growing very commonly all across Delhi. So that can be a native plant? No, that can't be a native plant because why so? Because you can say that the name champa has been given by the nurserymen. At the same time, it is well adapted to Delhi conditions. It can thrive in the very hot climate. It can thrive in it can bear the cold conditions also. It can bear the monsoon condition also. It is also very well adapted here. But the most important criteria is that it is not evolved according to the Delhi conditions. So evolution is the main criteria. And in case of champa, if we can see, no birds, no butterflies, no bees, they are particularly attracted to this species. So it is basically only green, you can say plastic green. It is appearing green in color. It is performing some photosynthesis, some kind of pollution control, but at the same time, it is not sustaining the web of life. Okay, what is web of life? I am using some terminologies here. For example, I will start with the ecosystem. The word environment, if we talk about, the word environment means your surroundings. Everything which is in your surrounding makes your environment. Okay, and the functional unit of the environment is basically the ecosystems. These are the systems in which the abiotic and the biotic factors of the nature, they are basically interacting with each other and they give rise to a system. Okay, for example, if I clarify, uh, we have so many systems. For example, in our body also we have the digestive system. Okay, in the digestive system, teeth, the esophagus or the food pipe, the stomach, the large and the small intestine have to work together to attain the process of digestion. Similar thing we can see in the nature where abiotic means the non-living components and the biotic means the living components. They are interacting with each other, continuously interacting with each other, and they give rise to a system, and this system is known as the ecosystem. हिंदी में इसको बोलते हैं पारिस्थितिकी तंत्र. ओके, तो जो भी एबायोटिक यानी अजैविक या निर्जीव जिसको हिंदी में बोलेंगे, और जैविक जो बायोटिक यानी सजीव, जब ये आपस में इंटरेक्शन करते हैं, आपस में क्रियान्वयन करते हैं, तो उससे एक तंत्र या सिस्टम का फॉर्मेशन या निर्माण होता है, विच इज नोन एज योर इकोसिस्टम, जिसको हिंदी में पारितंत्र या पारिस्थितिकी तंत्र बोलते हैं. So basically, if we talk about various plants and animals, they have evolved according to the abiotic factors which are present in that particular condition. क्योंकि इन abiotic और biotic factors में आपस में जो है interaction चल रहा है, तो उस हिसाब से evolution process भी चलता रहता है. I'm talking about the Darwin evolution phenomena. Okay, so here also the evolution which is occurring on the plants, they know what kind of the animals, they know that what kind of plants they want to eat or what kind of plants they should not be eating. Similarly, the plants, they are adapting and evolving or according to the animals. Okay, they think that whether this animal is harmful for them or whether it is beneficial for them. For example, bees are very beneficial for the plants. They help in the process of pollination. Okay. Similarly, if we talk about the cows or the other herbivores, they are not very beneficial for the plants. Okay, because they are eating them. So definitely the plants, they have evolved according to these abiotic and biotic factors which are working in consistency in that particular area. And this is called the evolution. And those plants which have evolved according to the local conditions of that particular area, they are the native plants. Okay.
तो इसी को जैसे एक दूसरे तरह से बोले तो when we say abiotic factors या local conditions, we basically mean the soil, the temperature, what kind of water is there, you know, soil में किस तरह के minerals हैं, you know, seasons क्या हैं, उस जगह का climate क्या है. So it is basically a combination of evolution with all of these, right? And all the
Yeah.
plant and animal community then evolves together. And then, you know, some of the process you described, I could think, I was going back to my biology classes and thinking, acha haan, plants have, you know, defensive mechanisms ki agar they want to prevent being eaten by certain animals, to kuch defenses hote hain, which is part of this whole ecological process and ecosystems. But Bhuvan, that was so beautifully put, you know, because just yesterday I was having a conversation with someone who said, but native plants होते क्या? उसने कहा मैंने ना बहुत ढूंढा इंटरनेट पे और उसकी ना मुझे कोई definition नहीं मिली. तो क्या होते हैं? So now I can tell her, okay, you can go back and listen to how Bhuvan has explained, because that is even I was talking about this factor, you know, how far back in time do we go when we talk about evolution? That's always, I think, kind of subjective. But that's a very important point, that the plants have, when we talk of native plants or even native animals, it is the organisms that have evolved over there over a long period of time. So that is a very important thing. And so, Bhuvan, one of the things you mentioned is you have been working with native plants and restoration in the Delhi NCR region over a very long time. So, tell us something about your journey with native plants. How did you reach here? See, for me, the idea of native plants started only maybe 5 or 6 years back. थोड़ा सा जब popular होना शुरू हुआ था within ecological circles here in Delhi. But you know, tell us about your journey with native plants.
Okay. My journey or my stint with the native plants, that has started way back in the year 1995 and 1996. Okay. That was a time that I discovered that what kind of plants suitable for growing. Although I'm not familiar with the term native. Okay. So at that time, there was a park nearby our home that which is very famous. The name of that garden is Roshnara Park. If you have heard about
हाँ,
it, it is
रोशनारा
located
बाग,
in North
हाँ,
Delhi.
हाँ,
Yeah,
हाँ, हाँ.
Roshnara Bagh.
Hmm.
So we used to go there for a walk in the morning, and I'm very fascinated with one tree, that is the wild date palm, the Phoenix sylvestris, जिसको देसी खजूर भी बोलते हैं, खजूरी भी बोलते हैं. तो I was seeing this plant and I'm really fascinated कि ये कैसा ट्री है कि जिसके टॉप पर ओनली लीव्स हैं एंड उसके बॉटम पे सिर्फ ट्रंक है. इट इज शेप लाइक अ लॉलीपॉप. Okay, so I was fascinated with this tree. और उसके बाद मैंने देखा कि उस पे बहुत सारे बया वीवर बर्ड्स, दे आर बिल्डिंग देयर नेस्ट ऑन इट. Okay, and monkeys, they are feeding on it. Similarly, many kind of birds, they are feeding on the fruits. Okay, so what I did was that I brought the seeds, okay, and then germinated them in the container, and they got germinated within 45 days. And I was really fascinated that with this whole phenomena. Second tree which I remember at that point of time, which was very common in Roshnara Bagh, was the Arjun tree. Okay, still I know it is common there. So Arjun tree, it is hosting large number of vultures. In 95 and 96, in the year 1995, we still have the large population of vultures in Delhi. एंड उस टाइम मुझे याद है कि बहुत बड़े बड़े अर्जुन के पेड़ों पर वल्चर्स ने अपने नेस्ट बनाए होते थे एंड दे आर फीडिंग देयर चिक्स. So I'm completely fascinated looking at the vultures, at how big they are. आज तो लोगों ने vultures बहुत कम देखे होंगे.
देखे ही नहीं होंगे, देखे ही नहीं होंगे मेरे ख्याल
देखे ही
से.
नहीं होंगे.
You know, unless you go specifically somewhere to see vultures, गुजरात वगैरह, आप कहीं जाएं, दिल्ली में तो कहाँ?
99% population of vultures have decimated because of only one drug or the medicine, which is a pain reliever known as diclofenac. Okay, I will be covering this in the later part of our discussion. Okay, so 1999 और 2000 तक बहुत ज्यादा abundant थे vultures in Delhi. तो और वो अर्जुन ट्रीज के ऊपर जो है अपने नेस्ट बनाते थे, तो आई वाज रियली fascinated with that. Slowly and steadily, I went to my college, and then I went for the masters to DU, where I met my teacher, Professor C.R. Babu. So Professor C.R. Babu is the, he's a main person, the brainchild behind the biodiversity parks. The various biodiversity parks which are located in Delhi. तो उसमें पहला जो सबसे पहले बना था वो था यमुना बायोडाइवर्सिटी पार्क, एंड सेकंड वाज द अरावली बायोडाइवर्सिटी पार्क. तो इस पूरी जर्नी के साथ में मैं उनके साथ में एसोसिएटेड रहा. फ्रॉम देयर आई पिक्ड अप एंड लर्न स्पेसिफिकली प्रोफेसर C.R. बाबू, जब उन्होंने हमारे को इकोलॉजी, इकोसिस्टम्स और ये कंसेप्ट पढ़ाए. और हिज यूनिकनेस वाज कि वो सिर्फ क्लासरूम लेक्चर नहीं देते थे, वो फील्ड पर भी ले जाकर जो है स्टूडेंट्स को फेमिलियर करवाते थे विद द ट्रीज, विद द प्लांट्स, ताकि वो उनको समझ सके. तो मुझे याद है कि हमारा फर्स्ट ट्रिप जो है वो नॉर्दर्न रिज, जिसको बोंटा पार्क बोलते हैं, वहां पर वो हमारे को लेकर गए थे, जस्ट बिहाइंड द दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी. तो वहां पर वो हमें लेकर गए थे, और वहां पर उन्होंने हमें नेटिव रिज के प्लांट्स के बारे में बताया था, और उन्होंने हमें प्रोसोपिस जूलीफ्लोरा, यानी आपका जो विलायती कीकर है, उसके बारे में सबसे पहले बताया था कि ये कितना हार्मफुल है. तो फ्रॉम देयर वी पिक्ड अप दैट कॉन्सेप्ट. और जब मैं ग्रो हो रहा था इन द ईयर 1995-96, उस टाइम ऑर्नामेंटल प्लांटिंग की इतनी ज्यादा बात नहीं होती थी. जनरली लार्ज बाग जिसको बोलते हैं, वो बहुत ज्यादा उस टाइम कॉमन कंसेप्ट था, बट ऑर्नामेंटल गार्डन्स उस टाइम इतने ज्यादा नहीं थे. लेकिन धीरे धीरे अब फ्रॉम ईयर 2000 ऑनवर्ड्स इतने सारे आप देखेंगे कि ऑर्नामेंटल पार्क्स दे हैव बीन एस्टैब्लिश्ड, बट दो स्पीसीज दे हैव बीन ग्रोन हियर व्हिच आर नथिंग मोर देन प्लास्टिक ग्रीनरी. तो वहां पर ऐसे प्लांट्स लगाए गए जिनका देखने में तो बहुत सुंदर है, दे आर वेरी गुड टू लुक एट, वेरी फ्रेशली ग्रीन. ओके, दे हैव मल्टी कलर्ड लीव्स, दे हैव वेरी ब्यूटीफुल स्टेम, बट एट द सेम टाइम उनका इकोलॉजिकल रोल जीरो है. क्या, क्यों जीरो है? क्योंकि दे सस्टेन नो प्लांट, नो बटरफ्लाईज, नो बीज, नो बर्ड्स, कोई भी इसकी तरफ अट्रैक्टेड नहीं होता. अब आप, कई लोग कहते हैं कि नहीं नहीं, हमने गुलमोहर पर भी जो है बर्ड्स देखे हैं. ओके, बट मैं उनको ये क्वेश्चन करता हूँ कि गुलमोहर पर बर्ड्स देखे हैं तो वो उनकी मजबूरी है कि उनको कोई जगह पर तो चाहिए ना, कि अपना नेस्ट बनाने के लिए या बैठने के लिए. ठीक है, तो अब वो कहते हैं कि पीली कनेर पर उन्होंने सनबर्ड को देखा है.
Sunbirds are very common, very common. Pili
नेक्टर
Kaner. They love it. They're nectar stealers actually for Pili Kaner. Yeah.
But I argue to them that पीली कनेर is such a poisonous plant. Okay, अब बेचारे सनबर्ड्स के जो होस्ट प्लांट थे जिन पर वो फीड करता था, जो नेचुरली जिसके साथ में सनबर्ड इन्वॉल्व हुआ था, उसको तो आपने खत्म कर दिया. अब उसके पास कोई ऑप्शन नहीं है. He doesn't have any option to but to feed on the पीली कनेर only. जो आपने लगाया उसने अपने आप को थोड़ा सा मॉडिफाई कर लिया. ठीक है, लेकिन कुछ सारे बर्ड्स ऐसे नहीं करते. Mind you, there are two terms in ecology. One is the generalist and other is the specialist. Okay, generalist means those kinds of animals, birds, even plants also, जो कि हर टाइप की कंडीशन में रह लेते हैं. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, योर रॉक पिजन, योर क्रोज, ओके, हाउस क्रो, वो कोई भी कंडीशन होगी तो वो अपने आप को धीरे धीरे वो इवॉल्व कर लेंगे, और जो भी उनको फूड मटेरियल मिलेगा थोड़ा बहुत अपने आप को वो एडजस्ट कर लेंगे उस हिसाब से. ओके, तो अब आप देखें कि रॉक पिजन को आज खाना डालने की जरूरत पड़ती है. ठीक है, लेकिन क्या रॉक पिजन जस्ट ह्यूमन बींग्स के आने के बाद ही बने? नो, वो ह्यूमन बींग से पहले भी थे. ओके, और उनको अपना खाना ढूंढना आता था, लेकिन हमने उनको इतना मॉडिफाई कर दिया है कि आज हम उनको दाना डाल रहे हैं. ठीक है, that is again a very different tangent which I'm going on. So back to the topic.
Yeah, but I think, couple of things that you brought up. I remember when in the 90s, you're so right. This concept of ornamental parks wasn't there. Parks वगैरह थे, but ऐसे कोई ornamental species नहीं लगाते थे. ये 2000s में ही होना शुरू हुआ. और खासकर ना इसमें वो हमने जो हमारे स्प्रिंग फ्लावर्स होते हैं ना, उससे शुरुआत हुई वो लगाने से.
Right.
And in fact, when I see some areas here nearby, I live in South Delhi, and there's this RK Puram area, and if you go there, you actually see a very, very great variety of plants, which are a very great variety of native plants, because you will find the karondas and the jasmines and other variety of trees and shrubs which you don't have in these parks anymore. You'll find mehendi over there, for example, planted. And so that's a very definitely, I think, this idea of ornamentals and beautification, and what it is, what is our idea of aesthetics has really impacted the presence of native plants around us. That is certainly like very, very true. And I was trying to plant seeds of shirish at that time. मुझे पार्क में वो मिले, मैंने कहा अरे ये बड़ा अच्छा है, इसको लगा के. मुझे कुछ नहीं पता था, मैं तो बहुत छोटी थी. I didn't know ये shirish है कि क्या है, कि what it is. But I had a lot of eucalyptus and shirish in that park. So I used to try and plant those. I don't even remember what happened with that. So yeah, but the other thing is, we've had a few discussions on this, and we have been introduced to some of the idea of different habitats that exist in Delhi. So we have the Kohi or Aravali habitat, and then we have Bangar and Khadar, which I want to talk about today, which are more riverine habitats. Bangar, the old alluvium, and Khadar, new alluvium, as I understand. But before we move on to Bangar Khadar, I wanted to understand get your insights also about the Kohi or the Aravali habitat, क्योंकि आपने भी उधर बहुत काम किया है. So I'm sure you have some things to share with us that we can all take back. And if there are any slides over here that I can share.
We can start with the slideshow.
Yeah, okay, let's go over there. So from we can talk about Kohi, and then move towards Bangar and Khadar, because those are the two very, very important ones that we want to talk about today.
Okay, let's start from the first slide only. So you can share the screen if possible.
I am doing that.
Okay, thank you so much.
So of course, while we will talk about the river habitats, let's start with our ecosystems here.
Okay. So first thing I want to mention here is that in Delhi, there are two major ecosystems. If we talk about Delhi and NCR, okay. First one is the Delhi Ridge, and second one is the River Yamuna. Okay, I asked this question to so many people around me, that why Delhi has been chosen as a capital city of India. What are the ecological reasons for that? Okay, we have the political reasons, we have the administrative reasons. I'm not going to the details of that, but the ecological reasons behind that is because of the presence of these two ecosystems, that is Delhi Ridge and River Yamuna. Delhi has remained the capital city of India since ancient times. Okay, if we talk about for the flourishment of any civilization, we need two kinds of things. First is the water security. First thing is that fresh water is available for drinking purpose and for the agriculture purpose. Okay, and second thing is that we get various kinds of resources, such as the wood, timber, fruits, medicinal plants, fresh flowers. Okay, so these two ecosystems, they are sufficient for providing these benefits which are required for the flourishment of the civilization in Delhi. Okay, all across the world, you can see major civilizations. They arose across along the banks of the major rivers. For example, the Indus Valley civilization, जिसको सिंधु घाटी सभ्यता बोलते हैं, and we have the Egyptian civilization, मिस्र की सभ्यता जिसको बोलते हैं. So you can see all the civilizations, they arose along the banks of the major rivers. Similarly, Yamuna, it provides the fresh drinking water for agriculture purpose and also for drinking, bathing, and other purposes. Delhi Ridge Forest, it provides the oxygen, the pollution control, it provides the medicinal plants, timber, fresh fruits, okay, and habitat for the birds and the animals. And that's why the humans, they have started settling in this particular region. Okay, if you see the boundary of the sub cities of the Delhi, for example, the Shahjahanabad and Tughlakabad, they are all in the vicinity of this area. Okay, so Delhi Ridge and River Yamuna, they played a pivotal role in establishing Delhi as a capital city of India. For, the ecological reason behind this is which I have mentioned here. Okay, so next slide, please. If we talk about the physiographic zones of Delhi NCR, okay, so physiographic zones, if we talk about, physiographic zones are basically the micro habitats of the Delhi. And here we can divide the Delhi into four physiographic zones according to the soil conditions and the availability of moisture. We can, and you can say uh, the other abiotic factors, we can classify that into the Khadar region, okay, which is nothing but the riverine zone, which is just abutting the river Yamuna. Okay, so areas around the Yamuna and Hindon, which includes your Mayur Vihar, Patpadganj, Lakshmi Nagar, Dilshad Garden, Yamuna Pushta, Noida, Ghaziabad, there are more areas which can be classified under the Khadar zone or the riverine zone, in which the soil is sandy. It is the fresh alluvium which has been brought and deposited by the river Yamuna. तो यहाँ पर जो सॉइल होती है काफी ज्यादा उपजाऊ होती है, उसकी फर्टाइल जो क्षमता होती है वो काफी ज्यादा होती है, इसलिए यहाँ पर एग्रीकल्चर काफी पॉसिबल होता है. और जो सबसॉइल या ग्राउंड वाटर का लेवल होता है वो ज्यादा डीप नहीं होता इन रीजन्स में. ओके, और दे आर प्रोन टू फ्लडिंग. तो यहाँ पर जो, क्योंकि यमुना के बैंक्स पर आप इनको देखते हैं तो यहाँ पर फ्लड्स जो है वो आते हैं, और जब फ्लड्स आते हैं तो द रिवर डिपॉजिट्स इज फ्रेश एलुवियम, जो वो पहाड़ों से वो लेकर आई हैं, तो यहाँ पर वो सारा कुछ वो डिपॉजिट कर देती है. दूसरा है बांगर एरिया, विच इज द एरिया विच इज इरिगेटेड बाय द वेल्स एंड द कैनाल्स. Okay, the Bangar basically, I will differentiate between the Khadar and Bangar in the later slides, but यहाँ पर भी मैं थोड़ा सा इसको differentiate कर दूं. तो Bangar means the old alluvium, ओल्ड एलुवियल सॉइल, जो पुरानी कभी यहाँ पर फ्लड्स आया करते थे. अब यमुना ने अपना जो रास्ता है थोड़ा सा शिफ्ट कर लिया, तो यहाँ पर जो है आप देखते हैं कि पुरानी एलुवियम या एलुवियल सॉइल जो है आपको देखने को मिलती है. और यहीं पर सबसे ज्यादा दिल्ली की एग्रीकल्चरल एक्टिविटीज जो है वो होती थी और अभी भी होती हैं. और इसमें मेनली आता है आपका नॉर्थ और नॉर्थ वेस्ट दिल्ली के कुछ रीजन, जैसे आप देखते हैं नरेला, बवाना, आउटर दिल्ली के कुछ रीजन्स, इवन मैं जहाँ पर रहता हूँ शालीमार बाग, वो भी इसी के अंदर आता है. और साउथ और वेस्ट दिल्ली के भी कुछ रीजन्स जो हैं वो इसमें आते हैं. ओके, उसके बाद हम आते हैं डाबर, जिसको विच कैन बी क्लासिफाइड एज अ लो लाइंग स्वैम्पी एरिया. इस एरिया में क्या होता था कि क्योंकि लो लाइंग एरिया है तो हर साल यहाँ पर जब बारिश होती थी तो बाढ़ आ जाती थी, ये स्वैम्प में कन्वर्ट हो जाती थी. और इसमें आते हैं आपके नजफगढ़, ईसापुर, साउथ वेस्ट दिल्ली के कुछ रीजन, और नॉर्थ वेस्ट दिल्ली का भी एक रीजन यहाँ पर आता है जिसका नाम है जहांगीरपुरी वेटलैंड्स, और धीरपुर वेटलैंड्स भी इसी के अंदर आते हैं. ये दिल्ली के कुछ रीजन्स हैं, अगर आपको आउटर दिल्ली के बारे में पता हो तो ये सब वहीं पर ही लोकेटेड है. और उसके अलावा द फोर्थ इज द कोही और द पहाड़ी. ओके, कोही रीजन जिसको हम पहाड़ी बोलते थे या अभी भी बोलते हैं, तो इसमें आप देखेंगे कि अरावली हिल रेंजेस का एरिया आता है. दिल्ली रिज जो है वो बेसिकली अरावली हिल रेंजेस का ही एक एक्सटेंशन है. ओके, और अरावली हिल रेंजेस, दे आर बेसिकली द ओल्डेस्ट माउंटेन चेन इन द वर्ल्ड. ये डायनासोर और हिमालय से भी पहले एग्जिस्टेंस में थी. जब हिमालयस भी नहीं बने थे, डायनासोर्स भी अभी नहीं आए थे अर्थ पर, उससे भी पहले जो है अरावली हिल रेंजेस उस टाइम हुआ करती थी। ठीक है, और आज जो है कभी ये बहुत इनकी जो हाइट थी वो काफी थी, अब इनकी हाइट काफी कम हो चुकी है। ठीक है, तो माइंड यू दे अरावली हिल रेंजेस दे बेसिकली स्टार्ट फ्रॉम द गुजरात, okay, covers some part of the eastern Rajasthan, then they enter into the southern Haryana, and finally they end up in Delhi. जो उसका लास्ट पॉइंट है वो है आपका नॉर्दर्न रिज, जिसको बोंटा पार्क बोलते हैं, कमला नेहरू रिज बोलते हैं। ओके, तो वहां पर इसका लास्ट पॉइंट है, और यहाँ पर जो अरावली हिल रेंजेस है दे यू कैन से दे मीट अप विद द यमुना रिवर। तो यहाँ पर दो हैबिटेट्स का इंटरमिंगलिंग और द मर्जर आपको यहाँ पर देखने को मिलता है। तो कोही और पहाड़ी रीजन में आपका तुगलकाबाद, मेहरौली, करोल बाग। अच्छा, करोल बाग का नाम करोल बाग क्यों पड़ा? बिकॉज इट वाज अबंडेड विद द कैरल ट्रीज या करोल ट्रीज, okay, which is nothing but your erythrina. You this is a scientific
Oh,
scientific
the
name.
coral tree, the
Yes,
red flowers. Oh,
yes.
I didn't know. That's so interesting.
So carol, it is spelled as carol, and from carol it became karol. Okay, तो इसलिए उसका नाम करोल पड़ गया। इसी तरीके से पहाड़गंज, मलकागंज, आनंद पर्वत, इन एरियाज का नाम कैसे बना? बिकॉज दे हैव बीन ट्रांसफॉर्म फ्रॉम द अरावली हिल रेंजेस। जब दिल्ली रिज को काटा गया तो यहाँ पर वो सिटीज के जो पार्ट्स हैं उनको बसाया गया था। ठीक है, तो तुगलकाबाद हो गया, मेहरौली हो गया, करोल बाग, आया नगर, गुड़गांव, फरीदाबाद, दे आर ऑल्सो द पार्ट ऑफ द कोही और द पहाड़ी फिजियोग्राफिक जोन ऑफ दिल्ली एनसीआर। ओके, नेक्स्ट स्लाइड प्लीज।
I just want to say thank you so much for sharing that, because we don't understand what is in Delhi, where it is, what is what. And that was
Yeah.
such a wonderful journey into Delhi and Delhi's habitats and spaces. And I would be very interested to now find coral trees in Karol Bagh. I don't know if they exist anymore.
Right. Now, coming back to the Delhi Ridge, which is known as just you mentioned, it is the part and parcel of the Kohi physiographic zone. So the Aravali Hill ranges, they are 1.5 billion years old. Okay, and Himalayas are just 50 million years old. So you can say that they form the part and parcel of the ancient history. They are the historical heritage which we are having here. We are blessed with that historical heritage here in Delhi. Okay, तो ये दिल्ली रिज जो है आज, बिकॉज क्योंकि डेवलपमेंट प्रेशर इतना है, और जैसे ही हमारी कंट्री आज़ाद हुई 1947 में, बहुत सारे जो माइग्रेंट्स दिल्ली में आए, तो उनको बसाने के लिए जगहों की जरूरत थी। तो दिल्ली रिज जो है सबसे पहले जो है उसका प्रे बनी, और यहाँ पर जो है अलग अलग एरियाज को डिवास्टेट करके उसमें अलग अलग रीसेटलमेंट कॉलोनीज जो है वो बनाई गई। फॉर एग्जाम्पल, मेरी मदर बताती थी कि वे बैक इन 1960s एंड 1950s पटेल नगर में कभी पहाड़ी हुआ करती थी। तो इट वॉज वेरी नियर टू सेंट्रल रिज एंड करोल बाग। तो पहाड़ी हुआ करती थी, और वहां पर सियार, जिसको गीदड़ बोलते हैं या जैकॉल बोलते हैं, वो बहुत हुआ करते थे। एंड वहां पर जो है डायनामाइट लगाकर जो है उस एरिया को क्लियर किया गया, उस पहाड़ी को उड़ाया गया, और वहां पर जो है पटेल नगर, राजेंद्र नगर, करोल बाग तो है ही है, इसके अलावा जो शादीपुर, इस एरिया को उस टाइम बसाया गया। उसके अलावा आप देखते हैं लाजपत नगर, वो भी जो है कभी पार्ट एंड पार्सल ऑफ दिल्ली रिज था। दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी आप देख लीजिए, दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी जो है उसका कुछ पार्ट जो है वो दिल्ली रिज के अंडर में था, और बाद में जो है वो उसको यूनिवर्सिटी वहां पर बसाई गई। और भी उसके आसपास के एरियाज, क्योंकि हम वहाँ की स्टोरी सुनते हैं उन लोगों की कि 1960s में यहाँ पर बहुत ज्यादा वाइल्ड लाइफ हुआ करती थी। ठीक है, वाइल्ड लाइफ के बारे में मैं आऊंगा कि कौन कौन सी वाइल्ड लाइफ दिल्ली में दिखती थी। तो वहाँ के लोग बताते थे कि इतनी वाइल्ड लाइफ वहाँ पर दिखती है। तो अब जो है बिकॉज ऑफ डेवलपमेंट प्रेशर, दिल्ली रिज जो है वो 4 पार्ट्स में डिवाइड हो चुकी है। सबसे इसका छोटा पार्ट है नॉर्दर्न रिज में, जो कि आपको सिविल लाइंस, और आपका दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी के पीछे जो मैंने बताया बोंटा पार्क जो है वो वहां पर देखने को मिलती है। सेंट्रल रिज जो है वो आपको करोल बाग से आप जब जाते हैं धौला कुआं की तरफ, आप देखते हैं बहुत डेंस फॉरेस्ट आपको देखने को मिलता है। राइट फ्रॉम जो हनुमान जी की मूर्ति है उससे लेकर धौला कुआं तक आप चले जाएं तो पूरा आपको फॉरेस्टेड एरिया ही देखने को मिलेगा। तो दैट इज बेसिकली नथिंग बट द सेंट्रल रिज। ओके, this is the second largest area of the Delhi Ridge, 864 hectares. उसके बाद आता है साउथ सेंट्रल रिज। इसमें आते हैं आपके बसंत कुंज, बसंत विहार, जेएनयू के पीछे का एरिया, संजय वन। ओके, और यहीं पर ही अरावली बायोडाइवर्सिटी पार्क जो है वो लोकेटेड है। तो दैट इज बेसिकली द साउथ सेंट्रल रिज। और इसके बाद आता है आपका सर्दर्न रिज। इसमें आता है मेनली आपका आया नगर का पार्ट, मेहरौली का कुछ एरिया इसके अंडर में आता है, तुगलकाबाद जो है वो भी इसी के अंडर में आपको देखने को मिलता है। और दिल्ली की एक सिंगल वाइल्ड लाइफ सेंचुरी है विच इज असोला भाटी वाइल्ड लाइफ सेंचुरी, वो जो है आपको सर्दर्न रिज में देखने को मिलती है। एंड दिस इज द लार्जेस्ट पोर्शन ऑफ द दिल्ली रिज। और सबसे ज्यादा जो आप देखते हैं कि यहाँ पर डेवलपमेंट प्रेशर अब तो फिर भी और ज्यादा बन गया है, लेकिन सबसे ज्यादा लार्जेस्ट कंटिगुअस ट्रैक जो है वो सर्दर्न रिज है, दिल्ली रिज का। ओके, नेक्स्ट स्लाइड प्लीज। ओके, नाउ फ्लोरा और दिल्ली रिज। अब दिल्ली रिज पे जो स्टडी 1968 में हुई थी उसके हिसाब से यहाँ पर मैंने फ्लोरा यहाँ पर दी गई है, और यहीं पर जो नेटिव प्लांट्स जो दिल्ली रिज में पाए जाते हैं उनका मैंने यहाँ पर ब्यौरा दिया है। According to the champion and seat, the vegetation of Delhi Ridge was tropical dry thorn forest. तो यहाँ पर ऐसे ट्रीज आपको देखने को मिलते हैं which have thorns। अब कांटे क्यों होते हैं पेड़ों में? वो इसलिए होते हैं कि अपने आप को हर्बीवोर्स से प्रोटेक्ट कर सकें, टू प्रोटेक्ट देम फ्रॉम द एक्शन ऑफ हर्बीवोर्स। तो प्लांट दे बेसिकली डेवलप द थॉर्न्स। क्योंकि दिल्ली में जो बरसात होती है वो बहुत कम होती है, सिर्फ 3 महीना जो है साल के मैक्सिमम रेनफॉल आपको देखने को मिलती है, बाकी 9 मंथ्स जो है वो लगभग रेनलेस होते हैं। तो यहाँ पर मॉइस्चर बहुत ज्यादा जो है कीमती है, इट इज वेरी प्रेशियस। तो उसको प्रोटेक्ट करने के लिए प्लांट्स जो है उनमें कुछ जीरोफिटिक करेक्टर्स आपको देखने को मिलते हैं, खासकर डेवलपमेंट ऑफ थॉर्न्स। और यहाँ पर जो लीव्स होती हैं वो बहुत छोटी होती हैं, या फिर इनमें आपको क्यूटिकल देखने को मिलता है, वैक्सी कोटिंग देखने को मिलती है। हेलो, वैक्सी कोटिंग्स आपको देखने को मिलती हैं। तो और थॉर्न फॉरेस्ट का एक और फीचर है कि यहाँ पर जो ट्रीज होते हैं वो काफी स्कैटर्ड होते हैं, मतलब एक दूसरे से काफी दूर दूर होते हैं। दे आर क्वाइट स्कैटर्ड, द स्पेस बिटवीन द ट्रीज इज क्वाइट लार्ज, एंड इन बिटवीन द स्पेस देयर आर thorny shrubs which are sustaining, they are growing, and along with that the grasses and the annual plants they are appearing, especially during the monsoon season. And when the monsoon season it is over, then these plants and animals they basically disappear. These plants they basically disappear. Okay, so major native tree species which we can get in Delhi is the first one is the Enogeasis pendula, which is known as the dhok or the dhau. This is the characteristic species of the Delhi region. Okay, it can grow on the rocky areas, okay, with its roots which are penetrating inside the rocks. And this tree requires very little water, although it is very slow growing. Okay, but it forms the pure forest, especially in the inaccessible hilly regions of the Delhi Ridge. Okay, so this is one of the, and the wood is very hard of this species. The wood is excellently hard of the dhau or dhok. Second is the fulai, which is known as the Acacia modesta. Okay, and at present Acacia modesta is only found in few patches of the northern ridge, that is Kamla Nehru Ridge or the Bonta Park. Then there is Katha, which is Acacia catechu. Okay, जिससे आप देखते हैं कि कत्था डिराइव होता है। उसके अलावा रॉन्ज इज देयर, अकेशिया लुकोफ्लोया, झिंजेरी, बहुनिया रेसिमोसा, एंड जस्ट बिकॉज less time will be left for the Yamuna thing, so I'm just summarizing it fast. Hingot is there, which is known as Balanitis aegyptiaca, or Dudhi is there, Wrightia tinctoria, and Salvadora persica, which is known as Pilu. इसको हम मिसवाक भी बोलते हैं, मिसवाक टूथपेस्ट आप देखते हैं which comes in the market, So miswak is nothing but it is basically the ingredients which are derived from the Salvadora persica. It has antimicrobial properties which are used basically. Next slide, please. So these are the photographs which are explaining how these trees they look like. So first one is Katha Acacia Catechu. इससे आप सब जानते हैं कि पान पर कत्था लगता है. इसके अलावा there is one color which is known as kathai. So this kathai rang is basically derived from this plant. The bark chips, they are basically boiled in water, and the color basically is derived from that. Then we have the Bahunia raceumacea, which is known as gingery tree. It is associated with, it has basically religious values, especially the leaves of this plant are using during the Dashera festival. Then we have the Acacia leucofloya, known as the ronge. It is very attractive for the birds and the butterflies and the bees. And the birds also, especially the shrike, which is known as, there is a prey bird known as shrike. It is known for hanging its prey on the thorns of the acacia trees. Okay, next we have the pilu, the Salvadora persica, and this is nothing but the miswak, which is used for its antimicrobial properties at the tooth cleaner or the toothbrush. Okay, so this is all about the Kohi region or the Kohi habitat of Delhi. I've just summarized this because our main focus should be on the Yamuna plants, right?
I just want to add here that people should keep a lookout because Ronge starts flowering in September, October.
Yeah.
And the best way to know Ronge is when the flowers come. And itni butterflies aati hain uske upar, itni butterflies, itni bees, and it looks so beautiful. We also have to change our ideas of aesthetics, because humko lagta hai, "Arey, ye sundar nahi hai," but you have to really look at it. So keep a lookout because Ronge will start flowering.
Yeah, definitely. One thing is left, the threats to the ridge ecosystem. Okay, आज जो हम ridge देख रहे हैं, although it has been protected by the order of the Supreme Court and other agencies, the Ridge Management Board, but you can see that within the ridge ecosystem, there are many threats to the native vegetation. The first one is the Prosopis juliflora, that is the Vilayati kikar. और आप देखते हैं कि 80% of the vegetation of the Delhi ridge is dominated particularly of this tree. This tree has been brought down by the Britishers from the South America, from the Mexico. और यहाँ पर दिल्ली रिज पर उन्होंने बहुत सारे स्पीसीज जो है वो ट्राई करे, कुछ नेटिव ट्रीज भी ट्राई करे जैसे शीशम, लेकिन most of these species they have failed because यहाँ पर drought tolerant species can only survive in such harsh conditions क्योंकि the tract is basically, you can say, it is rocky and the groundwater is not so easily accessible. So only those tree species which are drought hardy, which have extensive root system, can sustain in such harsh habitats. So they tried with many species, and the final candidate which they got was the Prosopis juliflora, because this tree, it can penetrate its root 30 meters below the ground, and it can suck all the moisture from there, and it remains green all throughout because it sustains on the groundwater. No herbivores, they eat its leaves. Okay, and its flowers, the pollen grains, they are highly allergic. They can trigger the asthmatic process. Okay, so it is basically a wasteful tree. It is of no use, and it is invading large number of areas of the northern region. Although it is adapted here, but it is not evolved here. Similar concept here, not evolved according to the local conditions. That's why no butterflies, bees, or mammals or birds, they are sustaining on this tree. Okay, sometimes some parakeets, they are known to feed on the pods of these species, but they, again, it is because उनका मजबूरी है. ठीक है, they are not doing it out of will, but उनकी मजबूरी, क्योंकि खाने के सोर्स उनके बहुत कम हमने कर दिए. And second thing is the conversion of forest into the parks. यहाँ पर हम देखते हैं कि यहाँ पर भी हमने पार्क्स और लॉन ग्रासेस लगाना शुरू कर दिया है, और उनमें ब्यूटीफुल ऑर्नामेंटल स्पीसीज हमने ऐड कर दी हैं पूरे फॉरेस्ट इकोसिस्टम में, जिसमें हर्ब्स, श्रब्स, क्लाइंबर्स, ट्रीज होने चाहिए, उनको हमने खत्म कर दिया। उसकी जगह ह्यूमन पिग्ड प्लांट्स हमने यहाँ पर जो है वो लगाए हैं। तो ये दो मेजर थ्रेट्स हैं रिच इकोसिस्टम के। इसके अलावा डंपिंग ऑफ मलबा and other factors, they are also there, but these are at present the two major threats which are threatening the rich ecosystem. Okay.
I like really thank you for bringing that to the fore because it's very important. इसके बारे में बात करना या जानना बहुत जरूरी है. And conversion of forest into park usually कोई सोचता नहीं है कि ये भी threat है, but I think that's a bigger threat than anything else because that is completely in our hands. You know, we can choose to do that or we can choose to restore the ridge as it is. So that's an important thing. And you know, one of the things now, of course, we want to talk about the Yamuna. And when I was talking to you earlier, Bhuvan, तो हमारी बात हुई थी कि हम यमुना की बात करते हैं ना, तो क्या होता है कि we talk of pollution, we talk of the river, we talk of the water, but you know, we never talk of the vegetation. And so it has largely been ignored. Uski, the vegetation of the Yamuna, what should be there, and I think that's something that of course we will hear about today, and to understand what is the vegetation of this river along the riverine habitat, Khadar ki vegetation, also Bangar areas which are older alluvium. And jaise aapne bataya, so many parts of Delhi are under Bangar and Khadar. What are the plants that we should be planting over there, and how do we restore this river habitat jo itni degrade ho chuki hai?
Okay. So if we talk about the total journey of river Yamuna, it originates at the Yamunotri glacier, which is located at the height of 6,300 meters in the Uttarakhand. And Yamunotri glacier is basically the source of the Yamuna. The total length of the river Yamuna is 22 kilometers. It basically enters from the Palla village and it leaves at the Okhla village. And this only 22 kilometers stretch, it is contributing 80% of the total pollution load which is there in the Yamuna. If we talk about when the river it enters into the Palla village, the water is somewhat clean, okay, and still fishes and other aquatic fauna can be found in this particular region. As it reaches Wazirabad, there is a treatment plant known as Sonia Vihar treatment plant. तो वहां पर जितना भी रिवर में से ड्रिंकिंग वाटर है उसको एक्सट्रैक्ट कर लिया जाता है, एंड दिल्ली के 20 बिग एंड स्मॉल नालाज दे आर एम्प्टीड आउट इन द यमुना. So if we talk about the total stretch from Wazirabad to the Okhla, so the water, if we talk about, it is totally dead. The water is totally black in color, एंड आप उसका इवन आचमन भी नहीं कर सकते. अगर आप उसको उठाकर आचमन अपनी हथेली में लेंगे तो इट इज टोटली ब्लैक इन कलर बिकॉज ऑफ द सीवेज व्हिच इज प्रेजेंट देयर. एक्वेटिक फ्लोरा इज टोटली डेड. बहुत कम फिशेस वहां पर सर्वाइव कर सकती हैं. कुछ इन्वेजिव फिशेस भी होती हैं जैसे अफ्रीकन टिलापिया, तो वही सिर्फ उस वाटर में जो है उसको सस्टेन कर पाती हैं, वरना बहुत ही कम फिशेस आपको यहाँ पर देखने को मिलती हैं. तो रिवर यमुना, जिनको हम माँ का दर्जा देते हैं, वी वर्शिप देम एज द मदर, तो उसको हमने किस तरीके से बिल्कुल खत्म कर दिया है सिस्टमैटिकली, तो हमको यहाँ पर देखने को मिलता है. तो हिमालयन रिवर्स जितनी है, नेक्स्ट स्लाइड प्लीज. हाँ, इससे पहले मैं एक और कंसेप्ट बोलना चाहूंगा, दैट इज द कंसेप्ट ऑफ द वेटलैंड्स. ओके, सो व्हाट आर वेटलैंड्स? अकॉर्डिंग टू द रामसार कन्वेंशन, देयर इज अ इंटरनेशनल कन्वेंशन व्हिच अकर्ड इन द रामसार सिटी ऑफ ईरान इन 1971. और वहां पर ऑल ओवर द वर्ल्ड द कंट्रीज दे हैव एग्रीगेटेड देयर, और उन्होंने डिस्कस किया कि किस तरीके से वेटलैंड्स और उनके इकोसिस्टम को हम कंजर्व करें. तो यहाँ पर से मैंने उनकी ये डेफिनेशन ली है. अकॉर्डिंग टू दैट डेफिनेशन, द एरियाज ऑफ मार्श, पीटलैंड और वाटर, वेदर इट इज नेचुरल और आर्टिफिशियल, परमानेंट और टेम्परेरी. माइंड यू, परमानेंट भी हो सकता है, मतलब सारा साल उसमें पानी भर सकता है, और टेम्परेरी मीन्स सीजनली, जैसे मानसून आया तब उसमें पानी भर गया, लेकिन जैसे मानसून खत्म हो गया तो वहां पर से पानी जो है इवेपोरेट हो जाएगा. बट दैट डजंट मीन कि वो वेटलैंड नहीं है. ठीक है, तो उसको हम तब भी वेटलैंड की कैटेगरी में क्लासिफाई करेंगे। वाटर चाहे वहां पर स्टैटिक है, मतलब इट इज नॉट फ्लोइंग, और वेदर इट इज फ्लोइंग, वेदर इट इज फ्रेश वाटर, मीठा पानी है, वेदर इट इज ब्रैकिश वाटर, मतलब सलाइन वाटर है, नमकीन पानी है, ठीक है। और इवन द मेरीन हैबिटेट्स में जहां पर जो वेटलैंड्स की जो डेप्थ है वो 6 मीटर्स तक है, उनको हम जो है वेटलैंड्स क्लासिफाई करते हैं। तो जहां पर पानी परमानेंटली रहता है, चाहे वो टेम्परेरी रहता है, ऐसे मार्शी एरियाज को या ऐसे लो लाइंग डिप्रेशंस को हम जो है वेटलैंड्स के रूप में क्लासिफाई करते हैं। ओके, सो अच्छा, नेक्स्ट स्लाइड प्लीज।
Bhuvan,
नेक्स्ट
can you
इज,
see this is on floodplains?
या दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। जितनी भी हमारी हिमालयन रिवर्स हैं वो अपने साथ में बहुत ज्यादा जो है फर्टाइल सॉइल लाती हैं। दे आर ब्रिंगिंग विद देम लार्ज क्वांटिटीज ऑफ फर्टाइल सॉइल एंड दे डिपॉजिट along their banks. Okay, when the river journey starts from the mountains, the flow of water, the speed of water is very high, so it basically erodes the rocks and the pebbles. So at that point of time, when it hits the plain region, the speed of the water, it slows down, and it is not able to carry forward that silt which it has carried down from the mountainous areas. तो धीरे धीरे वो उसके banks पर जो है वो डिपॉजिट होना शुरू होती है। और इसमें क्या होता है, देन देर इज अ फॉर्मेशन ऑफ द एरिया विच इज नोन एज द फ्लड प्लेन्स। ओके, इसको हिंदी में बोलते हैं डूब क्षेत्र, या इसको इंग्लिश में बोलेंगे फ्लड प्लेन। यानी जब तक जब रिवर्स में फ्लड्स आते हैं, बाढ़ आते हैं, तो उनका पानी जहां तक जो एरिया तक कवर करता है उसको हम फ्लड प्लेन्स क्लासिफाई करेंगे। तो रिवर के एडजेसेंट जो दोनों एरियाज हैं, दोनों बैंक्स हैं, जहां पर रिवर वाटर जो है स्पिल ओवर कर जाता है ड्यूरिंग द एपिसोड ऑफ द फ्लड्स, तो उसको हम फ्लड प्लेन्स यहाँ पर क्लासिफाई करते हैं। अभी जो फ्लड प्लेन्स है खासकर हिमालयन रिवर्स में बहुत प्रोमिनेंट होते हैं, बिकॉज दे आर ब्रिंगिंग लॉट ऑफ सिल्ट एंड द फर्टाइल सॉइल और एलुवियल सॉइल along with them from the Himalayas, and they act as the kidneys of the river. Okay, जैसे हमारी किडनीज फंक्शन करती है ह्यूमन बॉडीज में, इट एक्ट्स एज द प्योरीफायर ऑफ द ब्लड। ओके, इट आल्सो फंक्शन, इट आल्सो हेल्प्स इन द ऑस्मो रेगुलेशन। ओके, तो यहाँ पर भी सेम फंक्शन आपको देखने को मिलता है कि जब रिवर में बाढ़ आती है तो जो एक्स्ट्रा वाटर होता है इट इज चैनलाइज टू द फ्लड प्लेन्स, और वहां पर जो डिप्रेशंस होते हैं उनमें ये पानी जो है भर जाता है। ओके, और आसपास के एरियाज या रेजिडेंशियल कॉलोनीज जो है वो बच जाती हैं फ्रॉम द फ्यूरी ऑफ द फ्लड। ओके, और जब लीन सीजन आता है, जब समर सीजन आता है, तो ये जो स्टोर्ड वाटर है ये धीरे धीरे वापस से यमुना या और दूसरी रिवर्स की तरफ वो चैनलाइज होता है, और ताकि लीन सीजन में वो जो फ्लो है वो मेंटेन रहे। द फ्लो इज मेंटेन ड्यूरिंग द लीन सीजन बिकॉज ऑफ द फ्लड प्लेन्स। इनके अंदर फ्लड प्लेन्स के अंदर जो वेटलैंड्स हैं, बेसिकली उनमें से पानी जो है धीरे धीरे जो है समर सीजन में वो वापस उस रिवर की तरफ जाता है और रिवर के फ्लो को मेंटेन रखता है। सेकेंड थिंग, जो वेजिटेशन मिलती है, पर्टिकुलरली द ग्रासेस, they help in absorbing all the heavy metals and you can say the pollutants which the river is carrying with it. जितने pollutants और heavy metals जो होते हैं, तो ये जो vegetation है वो उसमें से absorb कर लेती है और रिवर वाटर को जो है क्लीन करती है। इट इज बेसिकली नेचुरली क्लीनिंग द रिवर वाटर। तो ये हमें जो है इतनी बहुत बड़ी बड़ी स्कीम्स नहीं चाहिए रिवर को क्लीन करने के लिए। अगर हम उसके फ्लड प्लेन्स को ही अच्छे तरीके से रिस्टोर कर दें, उनमें जो वेटलैंड्स हैं उनको रिस्टोर कर दें, तो रिवर क्लेंजिंग जो है अपने आप जो है वो अच्छे तरीके से होगी। तो नेचर हैज इंश्योर्ड एवरीथिंग। ओके, सो
I
दीज,
think that,
या,
sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
so next slide please.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very important thing. Yeah, that just having the wetlands, just having the floodplains can really help us in resolving so many issues. In fact, I didn't know कि the floodplains help in regulation of water in summers. मुझे भी नहीं पता था.
Even the best example can be seen in the Yamuna Biodiversity Park Uh, it has been developed by Professor C.R. Babu, as I mentioned in the initial part of my talk. और वहाँ पर आई बेसिकली वॉलंटियर्ड देयर, तो वहाँ पर आप जाकर देखेंगे कि किस तरीके से वेटलैंड्स को रिस्टोर किया गया है through bringing the native vegetation, especially the grasses. ठीक है, तो grasses, अब grasses का क्या रोल है उसके बारे में बात करेंगे. Next slide is Khadar versus Bangar. So what is Khadar? Khadar is basically the active floodplains जहाँ पर अभी भी बाढ़ आती हैं. They are prone to the floods. और वहाँ पर because river is depositing its the alluvial soil, so the soil is basically sandy in nature. It is highly fertile. Okay, the Bangar is the old alluvium, and it is basically representing the inactive floodplain, which is less fertile, and the soil here is containing conchers, okay, which are limestone granules. So they are known as conchers. So यहाँ पर आपको कंकड़ ज्यादा देखने को मिलते हैं. Okay, तो खादर की जो vegetation है, if we talk about it, is basically dominated by the grasses and interspersed with some trees. Okay, we will learn about what are the trees which are present in this kind of environment. And in Bangar, you can find those trees which are well adapted to the suppose the deciduous forest. They can be well adapted to this region. They can grow here. So in Bangar area, you can find the Bistendu. In Delhi, I'm talking about particularly. In Delhi, you can see the Bistendu, which is growing here. Wild date palm, Phoenix sylvestris, is growing there. We have the Acacia nilotica, which is growing here. We have the Cordia mixa, which is known as lasoda. इसका अचार भी बनता है lasoda का. So it is naturally growing in this particular area. So these are some of the species which are found in the Bangar region. Plus, you can also grow those tree species which needs fertile soil and sweet water in these particular regions, such as you can grow peepal, banyan. That can be also grown in the Bangar region. But in the Khadar region, the soil is prone to flooding. So annually the floods they are coming. So the species are quite different in this particular area. The species which can bear submergence under the water, the roots which are submerged under the water, those species can well establish in this particular area. So we will learn about the vegetation in the next few slides. Now, the plant communities which are present at the Yamuna floodplains. Now, what is the concept of the communities? Communities means the plant species, they never exist in isolation. ऐसा नहीं कि सिर्फ आप देखेंगे कि पीपल के साथ में पीपल ही लगेगा और बर्ड के साथ सिर्फ बर्ड ही आपको देखने को मिलेगा, या कोई और ट्री स्पीसीज सिर्फ वो प्योर पैचेस बनाते हो. नेचर में जो है बहुत सारी स्पीसीज जो है अपने को एग्जिस्ट करती हैं, and they form a community which is known as the plant community. तो यहाँ पर आप देखते हैं कि कुछ प्लांट्स को कुछ नेबर्स अपने ज्यादा पसंद आते हैं बनिस्बत दूसरे नेबर्स के, तो दे बेसिकली फॉर्म अ काइंड ऑफ एसोसिएशन, लूज एसोसिएशन, which is known as the community in which they are interacting with each other. तो नेचर का कंसेप्ट इतना सिंपल नहीं है, वो बहुत कॉम्प्लेक्स है. नेचर लव्स डाइवर्सिटी. उसमें आप देखते हैं कि ह्यूमन बींग्स जो है, हम अपनी इंटरफेरेंस से अपने हिसाब से कुछ स्पीसीज लगा देते हैं और सोचते हैं कि हमने जो है अपना नेचर को ठीक कर दिया, जबकि ऐसा नहीं होता. नेचर जो है उसमें बहुत सारी प्लांट स्पीसीज जो है अपनी एसोसिएशंस खुद बनाकर वो रहती हैं. हम तब तक जो है किसी भी एरिया को रिस्टोर नहीं मान सकते जब तक जो प्लांट कम्युनिटीज को हम वापस उस जगह पर एस्टैब्लिश नहीं कर लेते. फॉर एग्जांपल फ्लड प्लेन्स में दिल्ली एनसीआर में आप देखते हैं टाइफा और फ्रेमाइटस, ये दोनों तरीके की ग्रासेस होती हैं जो कि एक साथ में ही खासकर आपको यमुना फ्लड प्लेन्स के आसपास में देखने को मिलती है. तो एक तरीके की मिक्स्ड कम्युनिटी ये यहाँ पर फॉर्म करती है. दूसरा है टैमरिक्स डोमिनेटेड कम्युनिटी. इसमें टैमरिक्स जिसको हम झाऊ बोलते हैं, अभी ये फोटोज भी आपको मैं दिखाऊंगा इसमें, तो वो सबसे ज्यादा इसमें होता है. इसके बाद अलावा में यहाँ पर आपको बहुत सारी ग्रासेस भी देखने को मिलती है. इट इज इंटरस्पर्स्ड विद ग्रासेस एंड अदर स्पीसीज, बट द डोमिनेंट प्लांट इज टैमरिक्स. Okay, एंड थर्ड वन इज अकेशिया निलोटिका डोमिनेटेड कम्युनिटी, जिसको बबूल बोलते हैं हिंदी में. तो Acacia nilotica dominated community, we can find the Acacia species predominantly, but beside that we also find some kind of grasses and herb species which are associated with this community. Okay, तो अच्छा, माइंड यू दिल्ली में कभी अकेशिया के फॉरेस्ट बहुत कॉमन हुआ करते थे, अकेशिया निलोटिका के, ठीक है, जिसको हम बबूल बोलते हैं, और इसको बबूल बंस बोला करते थे. जो आपका कनॉट प्लेस है, कभी यहाँ पर बबूल के बहुत बड़े बड़े पूरे जंगल थे जिनको काट कर जो है कनॉट प्लेस बनाया गया. दैट इज ऑल्सो एन इंटरेस्टिंग फैक्ट विच पीपल मस्ट बी नोइंग अबाउट. सो नेक्स्ट स्लाइड प्लीज.
We should call it Babool Place instead of
Yeah,
Connaught Place.
we can refer that as the bubble place. Now, this is a characteristic species which we can find along the floodplains of Delhi NCR region. This is known as the Jhau or the Tamarix dioica. It has very beautiful pink color flowers which are appearing in the month of August and September. You can see them at present. This tree is flowering और बहुत सुंदर लगता है. इसके अलावा जो बुकेस बनते हैं, आपने देखते होंगे कि जो फ्लावर शॉप्स में आप बुकेस देखते हैं, यू कैन सी द बुके, तो कई बार इसकी जो ट्विग्स हैं वो भी इसके अंदर इंसर्ट करी जाती है इनसाइड द बुके. सो इट्स अ वेरी ब्यूटीफुल प्लांट. Whether you talk about the leaves pattern, whether you talk about the flower pattern, the plant is very beautiful. Okay, but nobody grows it at the same time. Everyone wants it because it has some kind of uses, ornamental uses. It has also has large number of ecological uses also. If we talk about this species is very hardy, it can grow in the marshy areas, the swampy areas, the areas which are under the water for long period of time, for several months at a stretch. Along with that, it can bear the salinity, यानी जहाँ नमक बहुत ज्यादा होता है, कोई भी चीज वहां पर ग्रो नहीं कर पाती, बिकॉज द फिजियोलॉजिकल ड्रॉट कंडीशंस आर प्रेजेंट इन दैट पर्टिकुलर एरिया. सो Tamarix dioica, it is an excellent plant species for the saline areas. It is well adapted to it. मतलब आप देखते हैं कि वहाँ saline areas में तो कुछ भी नहीं होता, खेती भी नहीं हो सकती, तो लेकिन Tamarix dioica it can well establish in such areas. Even if you go to Yamuna Biodiversity Park, you can find many birds, wetland bird species. They have built their nest on the Tamarix dioica, and they are flourishing on that. So Tamarix dioica is an excellent native species. The flowers, it also attracts large number of bees also. So it should be promoted in large number.
Yeah, I was just telling Bhuvan, इसके पहले हमारी बात हो रही थी, मैंने कहा किसी ने ना गलती से यहाँ मेट्रो स्टेशन के पास दो फराश, it's also called फराश, right? इसके पेड़ लगा दिए, and I just saw because it's so beautiful. It's really, you know, you can notice it from a difference when it's flowering. And as Bhuvan said, so many bees on it. And I was like, ये पता नहीं गलती से लगा दिए क्योंकि कहाँ से आ गए दो पेड़ खाली. But yeah, it's a beautiful tree, and thank you for sharing so much about it. And
उन्होंने बाय मिस्टेक ही लगा दिया होगा, deliberately नहीं लगाया होगा, by mistake ही होगा.
Yeah, definitely by mistake.
Next slide please.
Yeah,
हाँ. This is the grass which I was talking about. इसको हिंदी में बोलते हैं पटेरा और साइंटिफिक नेम है टाइफा एंगस्टिफोलिया. तो ये एक तरीके की एम्फीबियस ग्रास है और which can grow inside the water also, submergence in the water. ठीक है, और इसमें आप देखते हैं कि जो ये आर्टिफिशियल वेटलैंड्स जब हम बनाते हैं जहाँ पर पॉल्यूटेंट्स को एब्जॉर्ब अगर करना होता है, तो वाटर ट्रीटमेंट को भी हम अच्छे से अकम्प्लिश कर सकते हैं यूजिंग दिस टाइफा एंगस्टिफोलिया grass. It absorbs the heavy metals and other pollutants from the water. So it is an excellent species basically for that. So Typha angustifolia. अच्छा, इसके अलावा I have seen large number of birds such as even your weaver bird. there is one species of weaver bird which I have seen in Noida. It is making its nest using the leaves from of this species, Typha angustifolia. तो ये पटेरा बहुत ही excellent species है of the wetland. Next slide, please.
And I love Bhuvan जो आप बता रहे हैं ना, how different birds and animals and bees and insects are, you know, using these habitats, and that is what forms the ecosystem and the communities, and that is how they've evolved together. So that's so important.
नेक्स्ट इज फ्रेगमाइटस कार्का, इसको नरकुल या नरसल भी बोलते हैं. ये भी आपको दिस इज एन एक्सीलेंट वेटलैंड ग्रास. इट एब्जॉर्ब्स अगेन द लार्ज नंबर ऑफ पोल्यूटेंट्स फ्रॉम द वाटर. एट द सेम टाइम large number of granivorous birds, they feed on the grains of these species. Okay, मैंने अपने लेक्चर के शुरू में बताया था कि there are two types of animals or even plants, journalist and specialist. So I talked about the journalist. Now I'm talking about the specialist here. कि जो ग्रेनिवोरस बर्ड्स होती हैं उनको सबसे ज्यादा आप देखेंगे कि ऐसी स्पीसीज, ग्रासेस की स्पीसीज जो है अट्रैक्ट करती हैं. इवन ह्यूमन बींग्स, वी आर ऑल ईटिंग ग्रास. ठीक है, हम कैसे ग्रास ईट करते हैं? वेदर वी टॉक अबाउट द व्हीट, वेदर वी टॉक अबाउट द मेज, वेदर वी टॉक अबाउट द शुगर केन, व्हाट आर दीज? दे आर इम्प्रूव्ड varieties of the grasses, improved species of the grasses. Ultimately they are grasses, so we are highly dependent upon the grasses. Okay, so grasses, they are excellent soil binders. Unlike trees whose roots they go down deep into the soil, the grasses, they hold fast the surface layers of the soil and they prevent the soil erosion. So they are excellent soil binders in that terms. And the seeds of the grasses, they are fed upon by these granivorous birds. और इन बर्ड्स पर अलग अलग जो है स्पीसीज जो है वो डिपेंड करती हैं. तो एंटायर फूड चेन is dependent upon the grasses, you can see here. तो फ्रेगमाइटस कार्का, अच्छा इसका एक और यूज है कि जो इसकी जो you can say the stalks of the Phragmites carca, it is basically used sometimes as kalam or the pen. तो it is nib is basically made from that. उससे कलम बनाई जाती थी और उसको यूज भी करा जाता था इस तरीके से. So Phragmites carca is also a very useful grass of the Yamuna floodplain region, which should be promoted. क्योंकि हमें लगता है कि जो ग्रासेस हैं और ये जंगली घास है. सबसे पहले एक जो कॉमन मिसनोमर which is associated with the grasses, everyone wants to talk about the trees, okay, but no one talk about the grasses or the herbs or the shrubs. They are equivalently important. Mind you, जो फॉरेस्ट इकोसिस्टम बनता है उसके अंदर सिर्फ ट्रीज जो है वो अपना रोल तो निभाते हैं. Shrubs, climbers and herbs, they are equally important for that. So not one species, many species, they coexist and they interact with each other, then only they form an ecosystem. Otherwise, if you grow a tree in a particular area in large number, it will not be a forest, it will only represent a plantation, not a forest. Okay, so Phragmites carca is very important species of the Yamuna floodplains, and it is an excellent and many birds also eats the stalk of these species.
So I have seen, for example, red munias, and munias are seed eaters. So अगर आपकी ये वाली grasses होंगी, you'll definitely find munias over there, and beautiful birds.
Right. Silver bills and red munias.
And such an important point about grasses, क्योंकि world over, you know, grasslands are threatened, क्योंकि grasslands को wasteland समझते हैं.
Right.
या हम सोचते हैं we must convert our grasslands to treescapes, which is not right, because there are grasslands is an ecosystem on its own, and so many plants and other animals depend on grasslands. They've evolved with it. And you know, definitely planting a variety of different kinds of plants, multi-layered canopy, which which will actually lead to a forest. So very important point.
Yeah, so even you can see the Serengeti plains in Africa. These are the grasslands, and large number of herbivores, whether they are giraffes, zebra, gazelles, they are dependent upon the grassland. Even the mammalian population is much larger than the rainforest. Rainforest has having so many trees and so much biodiversity is there, but the mammalian fauna is abundant in grasslands of Africa.
The
Many
large
people,
mammals
yes,
actually depend on grasslands.
yes.
Oh, that's
So
very true.
the grasses is their food basically. So the grassland preservation of the grassland is much important. Okay, next is the Saccharum bengalensis. Saccharum bengalensis is nothing but the sarkanda. Okay, sarkanda is a very much related to the sugarcane also. You heard about the saccharum of that is basically your sugarcane. So it is very much related to that. The Saccharum bengalensis, sarkanda, large number of furniture can be made from the sticks of this plant. Uh, Again, many granivorous birds, they are feeding on it. Okay, and it forms the large clumps. अगर आप देखेंगे कि यमुना फ्लड प्लेन्स पे काफी बड़े बड़े क्लम्स और काफी टॉल ग्रास होती है. इट कैन स्टैंड अप टू around 10 feet tall. It can grow. The inflorescence is such so high it can grow. So it is again very important grass for many kinds of granivorous birds. Plus many kinds of reptiles, they find refuge in this grass. So sometimes snakes can be found in this grass for the shelter purpose. They seek. और यहाँ पर चूहे भी काफी आते हैं इसको इसके जो wild species of rodents, they feed upon the seeds of this species, and to feed upon those rodents many kinds of snakes, they also come there. So उसके अलावा I just told कि furniture can also be made from the sarkanda. I've seen large number of furniture which is made from the sarkanda. So again, this is also a very important species. It flowers during the month of October, November. So October, November, you can find the flowering in this species. Next slide.
And while, we may be afraid of snakes, they are great at regulating mice and rodent populations.
Yes.
So they're an important part of the ecosystem.
Yeah, yeah. You can say if we talk about in Delhi, around 15 to 20 species of snakes they are present, and out of that only 2 species they are venomous. But people, they think that all snakes they are venomous and they kill them outrightly, but they don't know that snakes, they are excellent rat feeders. They control the population of mice and rats. Otherwise there will be the large outburst of plague and other diseases. So in nature, everything is connected, interconnected with each other. Next is the Saccharum ravenii. It is known as the dholu grass. Again, it is very similar in looks as compared to the Saccharum bengalensis. So, but the main thing is the inflorescence is very much different, and the inflorescence timing is generally the late monsoon months of October, August and September. August, September, it generally flowers. So this is also one of the grasses which you can find in the Yamuna floodplain. Next, please. Saccharum spontaneum. This is a Kans grass. Even films में भी कई बार shooting में Kans grass जो है उसके grassland दिखाए जाते हैं. It looks very beautiful. The whole area it is filled with the white flowers, and these flowers, they are very beautiful. And generally they flower again in the month of August and September. So late August and September, you can find the Saccharum spontaneum grass. Many kinds of granivorous birds, they are known to feed on Saccharum spontaneum grass. Next slide, please.
So Bhuvan, ये सारी जो habitats हैं, ये सारी जो grasses हैं, are we finding them along the Yamuna at all these days? Do they exist? या फिर सब खत्म हो गया है?
Abhi, in some patches you can find them. For example, in Okla Bird Sanctuary, if you can go, some grasses they can be seen there. In Yamuna Biodiversity Park, you can go and see there. Also, in the bank of Yamuna, starting from the Palla to the Wazirabad, some nooks and patches they are there where you can find the remnants of these grasses. Okay, beyond Wazirabad, if you go, there are less chances, although there might be there, but less chances that these grasses can be seen. Even tamarix can be seen. I've seen them at Yamuna Bank metro station. Before crossing Yamuna, you can spot them. There is a large island in between. You can find the झाऊ फराश जिसको अभी हमने बात करी थी, tamarix species. You can find there. तो ये भी आपको कुछ नुक्स एंड पैचेस में आपको देखने को मिलेगी. बट यहाँ पर भी वो प्रोसोपिस जूलीफ्लोरा की प्रॉब्लम यमुना के आसपास भी आ चुकी है. We
So
will discuss that.
basically for restoration, हमें ये सारे grasses actually लगाने चाहिए along with some of the trees that you'll talk
Yes.
about, that you'll
Yes.
mention, and then we can see some. We hopefully we'll have these kind of habitats also.
Yeah. Next is the Desmostyca bainata, और इसको हिंदी में बोलते हैं कुशा ग्रास या कुश घास. ठीक है, आप देखते हैं हिंदू माइथोलॉजी में कुशा ग्रास जो है, इट होल्ड्स अ स्पेशल प्लेस, स्पेशली द ब्राह्मण्स एंड द मेडिटेटर्स, दोज आर प्रैक्टिसिंग योगा, दे आर, एंड स्पेशली द ब्रह्मचारीज, they are advised that they should be sitting on the mat of kush grass. So kusha grass is also very much associated with our mythology. It has the religious significance. Beside that, it is growing all along the Yamuna. If you can find in some patches, you can still find it. I have found it in some places in Noida. It is in abundance. So in Noida, you can find out. This picture I've taken from the wetland which I have restored. So Desmostyca bipinnata, this is a grass which I have grown along the banks of that wetland, so that it can hold fast the soil. It is an excellent soil binder, and also it can help in cleansing the wetland. Next is the Vetiveria zizinoides, and it is very much familiar. People are very much familiar with this. It is known as khas grass. Okay, khas syrup is there in market. Especially it basically act as a coolant. Okay, the extracts which are extracted from especially the roots of the plant. Okay, they are used in making sherbet, syrups. Okay, they act as the coolants. And especially in Indian summers, in ancient time when air conditioners are not there, so the mats of khas grass, they are basically watered, and उससे जो टेम्परेचर था वो बहुत कंट्रोल में रहता था, उससे बहुत ठंडी हवा आती थी उसके अंदर.
खस का पर्दा बोल रहे हो ना, खस का पर्दा.
Yes, the khas ka parda. So this is also a very important grass, excellent water cleaning grass, Vetiveria zizinoides. Next slide, please.
Okay, sorry. So can we, in the interest of time, can we quickly go through the trees? And there were one or two important questions on the chat that I want to talk to you about.
Okay.
So I think because trees के बारे में हम काफी बात कर चुके हैं, थोड़ा सा we can go a little quickly.
First one was the babool tree, which we have talked about. Babool paise vasool, you have heard about in advertisement. So the wood is very strong. The flowers, they are very attractive for the butterflies and the bee species. Okay, and then the pods, they have the medicinal value. The pods are eaten by the goats, cows, and they have excellent medicinal values also. Okay, next piece is your desi khajur, which I have talked about in the initial part of my lecture. So you can see the baya weaver nest also on, because particularly this baya weaver is attracted towards this species, and it makes its nest hanging nest on this species only. Next is Mitragaina parviflora, the cam or kadam. This is also very important. In Vrindavan, there is a poem you must all have listened to in initial childhood days. ये कदम का पेड़ अगर माँ होता है यमुना तीरे, मैं भी इस पर बैठ कन्हैया बनता धीरे धीरे. So there was extensive groves of Mitragaina parviflora, came tree or kadam tree in Vrindavan. Now very few patches are known to survive. The Krishna is known to play with the gopis, and on near these bank of Yamuna, under the shade of these trees. Even there is a story of Lord Krishna when he stole the garments of the gopis and they hid on particularly these trees. So this is
यही
very
पेड़ थे वो केम के पेड़. And actually, you know, while we can find केम, you know, in other spaces also, the ones that grow along the river are the biggest, they are the tallest. सबसे बड़े खिल कर जो पेड़ होते हैं वो नदी के पास वाले ही होते हैं.
हाँ, because it is basically a riverine species, and it grows, it achieves its tallest statures near the water holes or near the water, you can say. Yes, and again, it is very attractive. Flowers are very beautiful, especially during the July-August month. The flowering is there. Butterflies, bees, they are attracted to it.
And very, very fragrant flowers also. बहुत
fragrant.
खुशबू होती है.
Gular, again, although a common species, but very few people know that Gular can survive in marshy places and those places which are submerged under the water. For a long part of time, it can sustain the submergence. The roots can sustain the submergence. The fruits are very attractive for the monkeys and other frugivorous birds. तो monkeys खासकर इसको बहुत ज्यादा खाते हैं, पसंद करते हैं. तो monkeys को अगर आपने सोचना है कि उनके लिए सूटेबल हैबिटेट बनाएं, तो ये काफी अच्छा पेड़ है जहां पर आप इसको लगाते हैं. इसकी जो बटरेसेस होती हैं वो बहुत सुंदर होती हैं, खासकर इन लार्ज ट्रीज देयर आर ह्यूज बटरेसेस. वो देखने वाली होती हैं. जो बेस ऑफ द ट्रीज इज बेसिकली नोन एज द बटरेसेस. You can find, and large buttresses can be seen in Ficus racemus or the Buller species. So in those habitats, you can grow them. It's a perfectly adapted for it. Now is Ziziphus mauritiana, the bear. In Noida, especially, you can find, especially the areas which are still untouched, you can find the Ziziphus mauritiana, which are growing there. The fruit is edible. So it is edible for birds, humans alike. Next slide, please. Now, this is again a species, Prosopis cineraria, known as the jhand. And it's known as the desert species, but it can also be found in the riverine tracts. It is well documented that some of the major rivers of India, such as Indus, it has large groves of Prosopis cineraria or the jhand in the past. Even I've seen, noticed this species near the Hindan. It is growing there in few patches, although, because in most of its original tract, it has been now exterminated. It is completely wiped out. तो आपका राजस्थान एरिया में इसके जो पॉड्स हैं, उसकी सब्जी भी बनाई जाती है. और it is very costly, you can say, the vegetable. 300
झांड मतलब खेजड़ी, right? I
खेजड़ी,
just want to specify झांड is
खेजड़ी भी
खेजड़ी.
बोलते हैं. अलग अलग रीजन्स में देखिए अलग अलग कॉमन नेम्स होते हैं. तो that's why we refer to as the scientific names, so that there is no confusion. In Delhi NCR they are known as jhand. In Rajasthan they are known as the khejdi trees. So different names they are known as. So this is again a very important species because it is leguminous plant and fixes nitrogen, and for desert people it is it forms a lifeline, and many stories are associated with it, especially next is the trees of other riverine areas. If we talk
I'm
about,
so sorry for interrupting. Sorry, yeah. You were talking and मैंने इसी में next.
The time is less. I can say the time is quite less now. So Jamun can be grown. Arjun is there. Gutel is there. Shisham is there. These species also grow excellently along the riverine areas, but they are not native to Delhi. You can find them just north of Delhi, especially from Saharanpur, Muzaffarnagar belt. तो वहां से आपको ये ट्रीज जो है रिवर्स के आसपास देखने शुरू हो जाते हैं. जामुन, अर्जुन, गुटेल, शीशम. बट
so गुटेल ट्री कौन सा होता है?
ट्रीविया न्यूडीफ्लोरा. ट्रीविया न्यूडीफ्लोरा.
अच्छा.
Yes.
I've never heard of it.
इसके आपके जो fruits होते हैं, fishes काफी.
Vallari Nodiflora is there in Sundar Nursery. I'll show you next time when we go.
Yeah, okay.
Next slide, please. Now,
And
these are the
yeah,
some of
finally, if we can talk about this, and then there were a couple of questions I wanted to take over. Padma had a question, and we have another question from a gentleman. Actually, I want to take that question first, if we can do that, Bhuvan,
okay,
because
sure.
he's asking कि नोएडा में जहाँ पर बहुत ही high water table है या submerged habitat है. So what are the best suited trees for a low-lying waterlogged green belt in front of a house in Greater Noida near the riverbed? So can you tell us what can be planted? I mean, after your talk, I am so interested in planting grasses. But what is the vegetation that can be planted there?
Okay, if we talk about in those low-lying areas, they can plant the babool can be planted, but if they don't want any thorn-bearing species, they can switch over to the tamarix can be planted. They can plant arjun trees also there. Gular they can specifically mitra gaina, the kadam. I prefer that they should plant kadam in large numbers. So because it is already very less now in Delhi NCR region, so kadam or came that can be excellently grown in that particular region. And
Also, it's
Gular I
important.
just mentioned.
हाँ, it's important to also keep in mind. I think कि ये अपने घर के पास लगाना चाहते हैं. So maybe that might be, somewhat of a limiting factor that you can't have something
Hello.
that maybe grows very big. Bhuvan, can you hear me?
No, your voice was cut in between.
Acha, is it
Can you
better
just
now?
repeat it?
I was saying that this question was also specifically
Yeah.
for trees that can be planted either inside the house or right outside it. So there's very limited space. And, in that kind of limited space, what would you suggest?
Tamarix doesn't grow too tall. Very excellent flowers. You can find it beautiful leaves, and it is ornamental in itself. So I must suggest that Tamarix shall be grown in that particular area if size is particularly a constraint, the space is constrained. So then
Right.
that can be preferred.
Right. And Sanjay ji, you can also get in touch with Bhuvan directly. We'll provide you the resource, and then Bhuvan can talk to you in more detail about that. And
Yeah.
Padma had a question, so I would like her to ask her question. And Padma, you can unmute and ask. Thank
Yeah,
you.
first of all, Bhuva, I'm so proud of you because this is the first session I've heard, and I'm so glad you've been hosted because you are full of so much knowledge, and I'm glad you're sharing it with all of us today.
Thank you,
The
ma'am.
question I have is about Barna.
Mhm.
I've listed a list of plants that you suggest can be grown, and what about Barna?
Barna can also be grown because if the common name is Baruna or Baruna, so it
Yeah, is it?
suggests that some kind of stream is basically flowing into that particular region where this tree occurs. It suggests that the water table is not far from the ground level.
Yeah.
So Baruna trees, they are excellent in these areas. Even I have seen, 3 days back, I have been to Kurukshetra, and I have found that in some patches near the field, the Baruna tree is growing. So it's
Yes, because I thought that was also a riverine and quite a beautiful and an accessible tree and grows a short tree. So I was just wondering if you suggest that too as a riverine plant that can be grown.
yeah, definitely. That is also this flowers are also very beautiful in the month of April. Yellow, whitish color flowers they
Mm.
appear. The fruits are attractive for the monkeys. Red color fruits when they ripe, they are attractive for monkeys. So in itself, it is a complete ecosystem, and obviously, it is a riverine species growing near the
Mm.
rivers also.
Mm.
So
It is also
definitely, it must be recommended.
comparatively easily available, I guess, compared to other saplings, other trees. Mm.
So Sanjay ji, that's another species for you, barna, that can be easily grown in front of a house. The other thing with barna is ki it is winter deciduous. So the leaves fall in the winter. So it doesn't even, बहुत लोगों को ये होता है कि sunlight रुक जाती है, but वो भी नहीं रुकेगा because leaves automatically fall in the winters, then beautiful flowers come out, and it's a smaller tree, so perfectly fine to plant in front of a house. So that's another one for you. And Bhuvan, so can we talk about this final thing, because this was an important thing that we also discussed, that how do we envision our river fronts in India? तो हमारा काफी जैसे पुराने समय में घाट होते थे, but आजकल एक modern idea हो गया parks और gardens और picnic spots बनाने का. So is that the only way? Because after talking to you, we heard about all the grasses especially. तो मुझे तो ऐसा लगता है कि riverine habitat restore करने का तरीका है कि we have to understand what is the species composition there and restore it. And if it's grasses, it has to be grasses. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because there have also been, very popular ideas that to restore rivers, we must plant trees. हमें 1 kilometer में ना पेड़ लगाना चाहिए. So to end with today, I would like you to talk about, your some of the threats that are there that you're talking on the slide, and how do we restore? What are some as an ecologist, how can we ecologically restore our riverine habitats? What should we be doing about that?
Okay. There are many stakeholders which see river in different aspects. Okay, for example, an engineer always envisions a river as a canal which carries water. So for an engineer, he envisions that it must be dammed, and the riverfronts must be developed. Concretization must be there. Okay, for people who are worshipping the river, for them the ghats are very important. They want to build some ghats and other kind of infrastructure near the river. If you talk about recently the riverfront development, it has taken pace all over our country. The best example was the Sabarmati riverfront, which is in Gujarat. But many people don't know about that. The Sabarmati river was also a dead river. And what these people did was they brought the fresh water from Sardar Sarovar Dam. The canal from the Sardar Sarovar Dam, they introduced the Narmada water into the Sabarmati river, and then the water is diluted, and then it is shown as the water is now totally unpolluted. It is now fresh. So that thing has happened. So basically, it is not a favorable idea to develop the floodplains according to the models which are adopted in the US or the UK, because our conditions are completely different from theirs. Okay, our river morphology, hydrology, it is completely different. So definitely, if we play with the rivers, it can lead to either devastating floods. Okay, lot many constructions have occurred in the past in the riverbed area. For example, if we talk about the Commonwealth Games Village, in 2010, many environmentalists have warned against the development of such structure in the floodplains region. You know that floodplains, they are sandy in nature. If you construct anything on the sand, what will happen during the earthquake? Obviously, it will be totally collapsed, shattered. So many illegal structures, they have come up, illegal colonies, they have come up, encroachments, they have come up in the floodplain region. So that should be stopped altogether. The river floodplains should be ecologically restored on the lines of ecology. Although I must say that some parts can be developed as lawns or for walking or jogging track, but in India we have the habit of overdoing the things. We don't let anything intact. For example, अगर हम parks देखें दिल्ली में, तो कोई भी ऐसा natural उसमें area नहीं छोड़ दिया जाता for butterflies, bees, snakes. We develop the whole park. उसमें कोई भी घास आ रही होती है, उसको उखाड़ कर हम बाहर फेंक देते हैं कि भाई ये जंगली घास है, इसकी कोई जरूरत नहीं है. We want only ornamental trees there. We can reserve some portion of that park for you can say the other species also. So similarly, if we talk about the Prosopis juliflora has also invaded large tracts of Yamuna. Water pollution is again a problem. River interlinking has been suggested by quite many people, but river interlinking has some ecological flaws, because what will happen that every river has its own microflora and microfauna. तो क्या होगा अगर हमने दो रिवर्स को इंटरलिंक कर दिया, तो सम स्पीसीज फ्रॉम देयर कैन कम इनटू द अदर एनवायरनमेंट, और वहां पर जाकर वो इन्वेजिव भी हो सकती हैं. और इवन अभी मैंने सुना है कि आंध्र प्रदेश में कुछ रिवर्स में गोदावरी, हाँ गोदावरी में पिरानास फ्रॉम साउथ अमेरिका दे हैव एंटर्ड इनटू इट. अगर आप किसी और रिवर से उसको इंटरकनेक्ट कर देंगे तो पिरानास विल डेफिनेटली लैंड अप देयर. यू नो पिराना, दे आर सो मच कार्निवोरस इन नेचर, सो फेरोशियस, and in India they have come to. So you can say it will be a devastating idea. Such ideas should not be promoted. Okay. Vallari, there are more slides about ecological restoration. The screen sharing has stopped at your end, I think so.
Yes, I'm so
I would
sorry.
like to. Yeah. Can we, Vallari, can we listen to, I mean, those who have, I mean, are short of time, maybe, can those who wish to stay, can stay? Because I would like to listen to the whole of.
Okay. So
Bhuvan's.
we'll have to ask Khushbu and Jayati. Khushbu, can we stay on in the Zoom meeting? And if people want to hear about restoration of the floodplains and some of Bhuvan's projects, they can stay on.
Sure. I mean, if they want to, but anyhow, I think we overshoot the time. So, given the fact like everybody's there, so if everybody agrees, then we can.
Sure. So then we'll continue on, and
only 2-3 slides are
yeah,
there.
no problem. I just wanted to confirm that we don't have any other meeting on this Zoom account. That was the only thing. So I am going to start screen sharing again because Bhuvan has, has been educating us, telling us about so many interesting things. And I'm sure a lot of us want to hear that. So here it goes. Yes. So do you want me to move to the next slide, Bhuvan? Yes.
Extinct wildlife of Delhi. This is very interesting point which I want to discuss in today's lecture, that Magar crocodile was found in the Yamuna river till 1976. It is extinct now. 3 vulture species, they are extinct from Delhi now completely. Pangolin was once found here, ab nahi milta. Greater adjutant stroke, they are also now no more found in Delhi, but there are British records which they have told that in Sabji Mandi area of the northern ridge, near to northern ridge, they have found greater adjutant stroke. इसको हरगिल या हडगिला भी बोलते हैं इस bird को, बहुत सुंदर bird होता है. Asiatic lion, the last lion of Delhi was killed in civil line area in 1876 or 1973. I'm not sure about the date. The Asiatic lion was also once found here. So you can say the wildlife of Delhi was once very abundant. और अब जो है, you can see nothing here except the crows and other common species, you can say.
Oh, let's not call it nothing. We still have a very, very great variety of birds, but I think even most birds in Delhi, so we have forest birds, but a large proportion of birds we find in Delhi are the wetland birds.
Yes,
and
yes.
river birds. And that is why all the wetlands and rivers are so important, even for birders, people who are interested in birding and bird photographers, because without the wetlands in and around Delhi NCR, you would lose about half of the bird diversity. But yes, we have very, very few mammals, and other animal diversity has definitely
Yes,
been
yes.
impacted.
I was
numbers of all birds have
Dwindled.
been affected, right? And
Yes.
we no longer, for example, I don't know if this, no, I'll not go in there, but that's a very important factor, that all these wetlands and the rivers are so important for
Yeah.
wildlife as well.
Yes. Yamuna Biodiversity Park, you can now find a large number of birds because of the ecological restoration. They are coming back to Delhi, which have not been spotted in recent years. They are appearing there because the ecology has been restored. So that can be a best example. Now, restoration work which I have carried out basically in Noida, there is one 12 acres wetland which I have carried out restoration in Sector 91. I am unsure about the current situation there because I might think the tender has been issued to some other agency, but in 2019, I have carried out the restoration work there. There was a Geja village in which the wetland is there of 1 acre. I have carried out restoration work for that. And there was the biodiversity park, which has been established in Noida, 5 acres. So there also the restoration I have carried out in 2019. I'm not sure about the current status, but in 2019, I've carried out these works. Now, next slide. These are some of the pictures of the wetland where I carried out the restoration. This is next to the metro, and you can see it is strewn with the malba. The Prosopis juliflora is growing there, and construction demolition waste is all piled up there. The main catchment area is totally wiped out, and only a small portion of pond is basically left there. Next slide, please. So, how the ecological restoration has been carried out? First, the Malba is removed from all these places. The night soil and other kind of chemically enriched soil, polluted soil is basically removed. And then the area is excavated using the JCB machine. The channels are widened, and the catchment area is basically restored. The grasses are the native grasses, especially the the kush grass is grown. You can see in this picture. So basically, for stabilizing the banks and for you can say for wetland purification, we have grown the native grasses in this part of area. Next slide, please. Now these are the post restoration pics. You can see that how the during the monsoon the area has converted into, and lately the birds have started visiting. Although the pictures are not very clear, but the spot-billed ducks, they are appearing in large number. Earlier only 1 or 2 birds they pay a visit to that area, but now after the ecological restoration has been done, several flocks of these birds, they are appearing that particular area. The glossy ibis is appearing in that particular area. So this is a classic example how when we restore the area, the wildlife, they start coming back to particular area. So we just introduce the native species, and we have just widened the channels so that a large amount of water can be accumulated in that particular place, and we have removed the invasive plants, and we can see the result. So they are quite drastic in nature. So these are some of the
This is absolutely wonderful. So nice to see a wetland being restored, and I hope we can visit it sometime and see it.
But surely if you can, but I'm not sure, again say not confident about the current situation. Okay, the other works which I'm now doing is working towards increasing the plant tree diversity in the parks and gardens of Delhi. We are seeing same kind of species in all the parks, whether it is ashok, false ashok, I used to say them, palm species, then chandani and plumerias or champa. In all the uh, parks, you can see a similar kind of pattern. So I'm just working on the increasing the tree diversity in the NCD and DDA parks. I'm already teaching EVS subject to undergraduate students. I'm running my YouTube channel, Nature, Environment and Gardening. I request you all, if you can subscribe to this channel, it will be it is containing the information regarding the ornamental plants also, the exotic plants, the native plants also, and why these native plants should be grown, what are the methods of growing it. These are the links which are available. If you want to contact me, my email ID is also given here, mentioned here.
So I've already shared Bhuvan's YouTube channel in the chat so that it's easier for people to access. And also always feel free to write to us and we can always get you connected with Bhuvan or, you know, any other resource people that you may want to. And his videos on native plants are very, very informative and very interesting. So I would definitely suggest you go and have a look over there.
These are the references, and thank you so much.
That is Bhuvan over here. And Bhuvan, I just want to say thank you so much.
My pleasure.
I mean, I learned so much, and everything was discussed in such a beautiful way. You know, it was like a story where we're getting to learn about our city, the ridge, the forest, the Yamuna, the plants and animals. And it was really, really beautiful. And I also want to say this brings us to the end of our series on native plants for this time. So thank you to everybody who's joined in today and in previous talks. And all the recordings will be soon made available on our YouTube channel. So please subscribe to it and please follow us on YouTube and other, you know, social media channels, because we will be sharing resources over there, as I've continued to say. And if you have any queries and questions, do reach out to us with them. So because the whole purpose of doing this was to not only create awareness about native plants and start talking about it, but also bring together a community of resource people and other resources which can help all of us in planting the natives, right? Because that can be very challenging. We can know about XYZ, but how do we do it? And so the idea is to create this community where we can all be a part of it. So do stay in touch with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And Jayati, do you want to give the closing remarks and we can switch off?
Yeah. Thank you so much. I mean, this was, I mean, I think a very fitting end to a 4-week series that has been so ably handled by Vallari, and Bhuvan just loved the way, as Vallari said, you know, it was all the imagery that you were able to form was just so beautiful. And I know that there are so many examples and the way, the analogies that you used, right, even at the very beginning, to just explain what a native plant is. I think most of us are going to, all of us are going to remember that, and that's something we'll take away in our hearts. So thank you so much for doing this. And yes, thank you all for joining in, all the participants who are still there. Please do reach out, as Vallari said, to us on our email and on our social handles. And if you have further questions for Bhuvan also, you know, just write it down for us and we'll request him to answer it for you later. So thank you all for being part of this.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.